Let's talk about Get Out, which is something I have been reluctant to do. Because, considering the fact that I'm not in the KKK, and that I'm not a white supremacist, or a Nazi, or a Trump supporter, tee-hee-hee, what's the difference? Considering that I'm none of those things, the following statement might seem crazy to you. I think that Jordan Peele's film, Get Out, is overrated. Yeah, it's overrated. Now, I still think it's pretty good, but for reasons that I must be blind to, everyone else seems to think it's a masterpiece. And the Academy agreed with them. In 2018, it was nominated for Best Picture, and it won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. Let me repeat that there to you and to myself, because I still have trouble believing it. It won Best Original Screenplay. Now look, maybe you could say Get Out is well written. That's still a stretch for me, but maybe you could say it's well written. But to say it's the best screenplay of the year? The greatest piece of screenwriting of the entire year? Are you kidding me? Sure, I mean, it's good. It's good, I'll give it that, but it's not a masterfully written film. I mean, I guess I understand why it was nominated, because it did create a lot of conversation. Sure, its base story wasn't the best, but lurking beneath was a commentary on society. So, I mean, I guess that maybe that might make it good enough to be nominated. Maybe nominated for Best Picture, which it was, but good enough to win? To win for Best Screenplay? I mean, what about The Shape of Water? If you're gonna use the film had meaning leaking beneath its surface level plot, you could use that excuse for The Shape of Water. That had plenty of meaning lurking beneath. Quite literally, it's about a fish underwater. That's a dumb joke. Or okay, but what about Lady Bird or Three Billboards Past whatever county? Those were great. Those were much better. And I know that this is the Oscars. I'm talking about the Oscars here, and people say that they don't matter, but come on, they sort of matter. And plus, this film won a lot more than just Oscars. It dominated across all the film award ceremonies, all the award shows, or I guess they're not really shows, they're events, the dumb little gatherings where genetically lucky people gather around in their suits and hand each other awards for doing fucking nothing. Anyway, it dominated at all of those. It got a shit load of praise. And I'm not saying that it didn't deserve any of this praise. Again, it's a pretty good movie. I'm just saying that it probably didn't deserve all of it. Sure, the film is well shot, it's competently directed, the script isn't terrible, and the performances from the actors are honestly pretty good, considering the ridiculous and illogical situations the actors are attempting to realistically perform. And now I'm tempted to go into how ridiculous everything is in this film, and to focus on all the glaring issues and logic of this film's ridiculous story, but that is pointless for right now, because Get Out really isn't about being realistic. It's about social commentary. Considering the social commentary, we can give Get Out's story a few passes. But stories that win the Oscar shouldn't need any passes. Even if the meaning is the main point of this story, if it were truly masterful, it would do a better job camouflaging its purpose, a better job at pairing its meaning, its bottom layer, with its plot, its top layer. It would have a top layer worthy of having a bottom layer buried beneath it. It would have a stronger plot, a plot that's more believable, more character-driven, more emotionally engaging, less predictable, better. At least for something that wins the Oscar for Best Writing, but see, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to just complain about Get Out, okay? I'm not racist, I swear. You'll see, I'm about to say something good about it, okay? I'm not racist. Okay, see, whether the plot is off or not, I still have to admit that at the end of the day, the goal of a film like Get Out is to tell an allegory. It's layered. And while I think that most of the film's layers are forgettable and weak, the layer that's supposed to say something about society still accomplishes its mission. Well, I think it does, or did, or I mean, the film at least, it should have accomplished its mission, but its reception was poisoned by a strange strain of the identity politics plague, ironically and almost prophetically leading the film to foster the very sort of pseudo-anti-racist racism it claimed to alleviate. Jesus, I'm ahead of myself. Before that, let's dive into the meaning of Get Out's story. What does the film say? Now, spoiler warning, but I think by this point all of us should know that the story to Get Out is about a white family that kidnaps black people, removes their brains, and replaces them with the brains of white people that pay to have their brains put into black bodies that are stolen. It's about white people stealing the bodies of black people and using them as their own. No, it's not a metaphor for slavery. It's a simple one, but it's not that simple. It's not about bigoted Southerners still living in the past. Who it's actually commenting on, well, this is what Get Out does that's actually pretty fucking ballsy. Instead of having the antagonists, the white family, be some sort of obvious, redneck type racists or right-wingers or something like that, they're Democrats. They are upper-class white liberals that are cool with the blacks. When the main character, a black man dating their white daughter, first arrives, before he discovers their devious plans, the white family makes attempt after attempt to tell him how progressive and non-racist they are, how tolerant and welcoming they are to black people. In these attempts to make the main character feel welcomed, they really just only alienate him further. Their obsessions with mentioning his different skin color and how cool they are with it only draws attention to the difference. They think they are charming him, that they are helping him feel less different, that they're somehow complimenting him, but all they're really doing is making him want to flee. This isn't the usual textbook racism that stories like this usually have. It's liberal racism. It's hidden racism. This part is important because remember, this movie came out in the beginning of 2017. Right after Donald Trump won the elections. Tensions were high, and identity politics were stronger than ever. When this movie was being written, planned, and even filmed, Donald Trump wasn't president yet, and no one thought he ever would become president. Everyone thought Hillary was going to win. Even Donald Trump thought Hillary was going to win. This film was meant to come out under a Democratic presidency. It was meant to come out with the left still in control of the political arena. This movie was meant to be, and still is, a commentary on the identity politics on the left, on how Democrats view black people, on the racism that liberals accidentally created, the racism that they've twisted into something that they now view as virtue. Get Out is about left-wing racism. It has nothing to do with white nationalists or the KKK or any of the other forms of right-wing racism in Donald Trump's America. It comments on the underlying racism of white people's incessant need to differentiate themselves from blacks. Whether this differentiation is spawned from white people's jealousy of black people or their desire to help those that are different from them, this differentiation is still an act of segregation nonetheless. If you're trying to convince someone who looks different than you that you see them as the same, the last thing you should do is constantly bring up all the ways that you're different. Sure, these liberal white people might be engaging in thoughts that they'd assume black people would find flattering, such as seeing black people as being physically superior, or being better at singing, or getting women, or playing sports, or whatever it is people say. But once these flattering concepts are manifested into actions in the movie of Get Out, all the virtue signaling and progressive claims end up translating into nothing more than murder and theft of other human beings. White people's fondness for what black people possess, or their viewing of black identity as somehow novel, doesn't put an end to racism as the modern anti-racist liberals like to think. It further spurs racism along. It further encourages measuring people by the color of their skin, and with that, it breeds more separation, more segregation, more racism, not less. So, with all of that being said, it is at least my interpretation that Get Out's story carries a smart message. And it certainly does a good job relaying this smart message to the audience. But this doesn't automatically mean it's a smart story. Now, yeah, Get Out is certainly effective at displaying its allegorical nature, its meaning. But I think it's too effective. It makes it too easy to notice. It's too obvious. there's no mystery, no reason to keep watching. It's not like a Kubrick film where you're looking through it and you're searching for themes and he was talking about this and this one and this character archetype means this, and there's just not that much mystery. Now, yes, the top layer of the story is sort of a mystery at first. The base plot, I'd say during the first half of it, we don't really know what characters B, C, and D are planning for character A, but when the scheme of the bad guys is finally exposed, or even really when it's half exposed, the second layer underneath it, the allegorical layer, the allegory it's spelled out so obviously, it becomes clear to the viewer that any further digging into the film for purpose, for meaning, any more thought given to the film at all is just pointless. The point of the movie, the one and only point, has been spoon-fed, and the puzzle for toddlers has been solved. Telling it this way, I mean, it possesses so little ambiguity that nearly all of its artistic potential is wasted. As much as I hate it when pretentious storytellers, directors, say the entire meaning of their film is completely open to interpretation, as much as I hate that, I can still at least appreciate a little bit of mystery, a little bit of ambiguity. But hell, even if you just have one concrete thing you want to say, even if your one and only meaning of your film is set in stone, at least make me fucking dig for it. But no, since Get Out focuses so much on getting even the densest people in the audience to understand its message, it moves everything else to the back seat. As the film progresses, its allegorical meaning becomes more and more visible. It becomes so bright and glaring that you never notice how sloppy every other aspect of the film has become. I mean, the last half of this film, I did nothing but roll my eyes. I mean, I can understand that it's okay, but I mean, my God, it treated itself and other people treated it like it was in an entirely different league. And it wasn't the downright retarded science fiction at the end of the film that really made me roll my eyes. It's the fact that the film felt it necessary to spell out its meaning in such a ham-fisted, literal way. I mean, removing the brains with, like, what, you want to spell out how harmful it is for white people seeing black people as different and being jealous of things that they have, and you're stealing their culture or whatever, so just put white people's brains inside. I mean, I get it. It makes it so every dumbass in the theater can understand it, but like, fuck, I get it, and it's okay. It's sort of good, I guess, but just, it's not fucking best original screenplay material. You see, here I go. I'm back at it again. I'm rambling, I'm saying nothing, and I'm complaining about the film. I'm not trying to say the film is bad, okay? I know I'm complaining about it as if I think it's terrible, but I don't think it's terrible. I just think it's overrated. And I guess what I really think of it doesn't really matter, because in its own right, it was entirely successful. I mean, what it set out to do was to be social commentary. That's what its true purpose was. And, you know, when it comes to making a point, Get Out fucking succeeds. Although there is a problem here. The problem is that everyone pretty much missed the point that the movie was originally trying to make. Or really, I guess a better way of phrasing that is that the world that this film was released to was not the world it intended to be released to, and people are just pretending to not see the left-wing criticisms. What they did see, however, when this film was released, or what they ended up doing, is they ended up just beating the Black Lives Matter drum and doing all of the things that the movie was attempting to comment on. The conversation once again became black people this, black people that, groups, labels, divide. Everyone then went to see the movie, and everyone took part in the arguing. Liberals used it to complain about Trump, and sadly, I ended up seeing multiple black journalists writing for mainstream publications get away with writing seriously racist and seriously hate-filled articles, just targeting white people, just spewing racist shit because Us and Them is a good story. It always sells. And then on top of that, everyone was obviously too afraid to call them on it. Let's just think about the original idea behind this movie, and then let's think about what it ended up being. This movie was an attempt by Jordan Peele to tell the elitist liberals that he didn't want to be treated any differently for being black. It was simple as that. He didn't want them to see color. Yes, there is color. He talks about issues that people of color face. Obviously, there's going to be some separation. You can't have a realistic discussion without mentioning some of these things. But for the most part, a lot of what the movie was saying was, hey, just like stop talking about how I'm black. Stop saying I'm a black man and just say I'm a man. He was just trying to tell these elitist liberals that he didn't want to be treated differently for having a different color of skin. So, how do the elitist liberals in Hollywood respond? Well, they watch his movie, they miss the main point it was trying to make, or ignore the main point it was trying to make, and instead they use the movie as a weapon in their own political battles. They use it as a tool to do the very thing the movie was speaking out against. They praise the movie, they call it a masterpiece, and they, the virtuous Academy, in a historic moment of racial progress, give the filmmaker, the auteur, Jordan Peele, the Oscar for Best Screenplay. They give him an Oscar he clearly didn't deserve. But either way, the Academy takes part in history. They make headlines. They praise everyone involved. They squeeze so much cheerfulness and progress out of the situation that everyone ended up just forgetting that the film they're praising was originally intended as a condemnation of the very praise it's now receiving. Wave after wave of articles explode across the web. Articles telling of how Jordan Peele made history as the first black man to win this award. An inevitable irony presented itself. How differently this film would have been received if it was released in Hillary Clinton's America. Maybe it would have been closer to what I can't help but think Jordan Peele imagined for it. Maybe now, in this world, in Trump's world, not in Hillary's America, but Trump's America. Maybe in this world, the film's criticisms of left-wing racism are mostly overlooked and ignored by the left because now, the left can get back to fighting for real progress again. Maybe Get Out's criticisms of this so-called liberal racism can no longer be valid now that the real racists are back in charge. But then again, if Get Out were released in the political climate it was written for, in Hillary's America, maybe the left wouldn't have been so willing to ignore his critiques. Maybe the film in that world wouldn't have been as blessed as the film in this world. It wouldn't have been blessed with such a racially divided political landscape. Maybe it wouldn't have been as successful if there weren't legions of angry mobs all wanting to use it for their inflammatory purposes. Maybe if Get Out were released in the world that it intended, in a world that wasn't so politically divided, in a world that searched for truth instead of scandal, then maybe, in this world, in this fake, hypothetical, fantasy world, where people aren't motivated by political loyalties or victim statuses or tribalism. Maybe if Get Out were released to them, the sort of people that would occupy this sort of world, maybe they would be able to admit that Get Out is overrated.